And welcome to the session of basic income and implementation of the BN conference. A slight moderation on the program. The third lecture done by Cesar Guzman is cancelled, so we only have two lectures, and we're going to start with Hyosang An and Jeonghee Seo from Basic Income Korean Network and Kunsan National University in Korea. And that talk is the Commons, the Commonwealth, and basic income. The floor is yours.
I'm Hyosang, and with me, Jeonghee sir. Say hello, Jeonghee. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh, let's get started. Uh, you can see the thesis of this presentation in the subtitle, How Commonwealth Dividend Vitalized the Commons. This research seeks to show that a Commonwealth dividend based on the principle of base income contributes to the revitalization of the commons through the case study of Pandong Elementary School. I speak as follows. Uh, First, the contemporary theory of the commons will be briefly introduced, where the idea of commoning is central. Then commoning will be divided into two. One refers to activities that recognize, use, maintain, and sustain the commons, and the other is distribution of the common wealth based on the principles of BI. Uh, Main body of the presentation is the children's basic income in operation at small elementary school in rural South Korea. Even though we have to make a long history and rich examples short due to the limit of time. Then we'll finish off with the meaning of the Commonwealth dividend in the Commons. Our story starts in the late 1990s with the expansion of what is deemed the Commons when neoliberalism was at its heyday. At the time, the commons became the targets for privatization and commercialization, and something that was sieved and devastated during the wave of neoliberalism. Soon, the commons became the rallying point against against the expropriation of wealth by capital. So we can see now crimes reclaim the commons in this perspective. Next. With the with the reintroduction of the commons in public consciousness came new understanding of the commons. Critical theory connected the understanding of the commons with capitalism and neoliberalism. David Harvey, a critical geographist, described neoliberalism as above all accumulation by dispossession, while the Angelis and Sylvia Friedrich showed primitive accumulation as an ongoing process rather than a discrete event. In short, the commons is the basis for capitalist accumulation. So the commons are not just a historical remnant of bygone age, but something that is constantly produced and reproduced. And it can even be the basis for an alternative society or a new mode of production. As but important thing is in so backward. The important thing in this understanding of the commons is to see the commons as more than just the resources, to include those who produce and reproduce the commons, say commoners, and their action, say commoning. As Peter Rimbaud, who proposed that we have to use common as verb, not noun, said there are no commons without commoning. Uh, but but in the development of the theory of the commons, one cannot omit Elinor Ostrom's theory about common pool resources in providing an effective counter to Gary Hadden's tragedy of the commons, to the point that Hardy himself would amend his famous thesis into the tragedy of the unmanageable commons. Here her focus was on community and regulation that underpin the commons. In other words, commons are maintained when there is effective community and its rules to maintain and sustain the common pool resources. Her great achievement was in demonstrating that there were systems of managing common pool resources beyond private goods and public goods. That is based on reciprocity, democratic control, and active participation. But in contrast to critical theorists, Ostrom is criticized for presenting the commons or common resources as the third area, while keeping private and public goods intact. Nonetheless, her analysis of the conditions required for the flourishing of the commons has been critical to the modern understanding of the commons. According to De Angelis, a prominent figure among the critical theorists, the commons is the socio-ecological system composed of three elements: one, commonwealth; two, community; and finally, commoning. On the other hand, David Boria, a leading advocate of the commons in the US, sees the commons as being of three interdependent elements: number one, resources; number two, community; and number three, a set of social rules. So, when we talk of commoning, it is about two elements. One is reproducing what associated commoners deem to be common resources, and two, reproducing body, emotional, and social relationships that make up the community. Next, we move on to Commonwealth. Unlike previous understanding of the Commonwealth, De Angelis, as I mentioned above, takes a very expansive view to include below five things. Number one, things created by many through theory, history, and culture. Oh, plurality is an autonomous specific term with singularity, so we can use many instead of it. Number two, cultural things transformed into commonwealth. Number three, resources actively pooled by many. Number four, resources claimed by many against the state. Finally, commonwealth captured by many who do not have. So thus far, we shows the commons from the perspective of commoning. Now we will again categorize two kinds of commoning to explore how the distribution of commonwealth can revitalize the commons. Number one, activities through which the commoners recognize, use, maintain, reproduce the commons. That would be called the first commoning or commoning one. The other commoning, second commoning or commoning two, would be commoning via unconditional and universal dividends from the monetary revenue in the commons. Some basic income advocates proposed this scheme. For example, Peter Barnes, Guy Standing, and recently Brett Ranelli. Next, and the case study of the Pandong Elementary School's basic income for children is exemplary of this phenomenon, where the dividend of commonwealth leads to the revitalization of the commons. This study is, as mentioned before, was based on interviews with 40 people, including 31 students. You can see the interviews in the slide. Uh, this is photo of Pandong Elementary School. Pandong Elementary is located in the center of South Korea in Bong-gun County, Chungcheongbuk-do Province. Like many rural schools in South Korea, it is in danger of being shut down due to the low number of students. Children's basic income began in October 2020 when all students received 2,000 Korean won worth of coupon that they could spend at the co-op shop. This amount was increased to 3,000 Korean won in December 2021. 2,000 Korean won or 33,000 Korean won is very small amount. You can see the children's basic income account of envelope in the picture. First, we have to go back to when the co-op shop was opened as a consumer cooperative in 2019. As you might imagine, there are little to no amenities around this rural school. So, teachers and parents came together to create a consumer cooperative shop with support from the Provincial Office of Education. From the perspective of the commons, a new commons was created to try and revitalize the existing commons of the elementary school. But this created a new problem, as a divide was created among students between those who could use the shop and those who could not. So the co-op shop was failing to function as a true commons. And the solution to this divide was the children's basic income. The reason for this divide was obviously due to lack of financial means, though this was not just due to poverty. Some parents frowned upon giving money to children, especially younger children, and some did not give money to their children just from lack of interest. But the result was a divide between the students through the access to the shop. Somewhat, somewhat paradoxically, the newcomers became the vector for division and antagonism. Uh, a teacher, his name is Kang Hwan-wook at Pandong Elementary School, came up with the idea of base income to solve this situation. The children needed money for the co-op shop to be revitalized, but it could not be means-tested to target just those from poor households, because first of all, poverty was not the only reason why children lacked the financial means to use the shop. Secondly, it was to avoid stigma. The stigma effect in welfare came to prominence in South Korea, especially with the debate surrounding free school meals in 2010 and 2011. And there was a consensus at the school to eliminate the potential issue of stigma. The budget The budget was provided via a sponsor who operated a co-op in the nearby city of Cheongju, and a budget worth 1 million Korean won was created for the children's basic income. So, children's basic income at Pandong Elementary contributes to the maintenance and reproduction of the commons. Firstly, the shop came alive again as all the children had money to go to the shop. The shop became a place to sate their hunger, meet their friends, and have fun, as well as a place where they could wait for their parents or study after school. With this, the shop could become a place of equality and solidarity, and of course pleasure. So the shop became a meeting place for students, parents, and teachers alike, and a place for other extracurricular activities. Secondly, there was growth within those who used sub the commons. We can call it subjectification of commerce. Children now had a sense of belonging in the school and actively participated in other extracurricular activities. They also began to see themselves as autonomous consumers, and they had the opportunity to think about equality and equal communal members. As with parents, they began to have a greater sense of responsibility towards maintaining the commons and began to think about new activities to that end. They are now looking for business opportunities to sustain the children's basic income that is now supporting the commons of the elementary school and the shop. While we do not know how these plans might pan out in the future, it is nonetheless a meaningful achievement that the parents are thinking and acting as members of the commons, say commoners. This concern and effort as commoners are also felt by the teachers, including the principal. More sponsors came forward to support the school and the shop, including the residents and outside institutions. Finally, there was an increase in support for more universal welfare system. Children's basic income became a catalyst for residents and local politicians to think about broader socio-economic and technological changes, leading to increased interest in a new universal welfare system. To sum up the presentation, in analyzing the development of the theory of commons in the 21st century and the case study of Pandong Elementary, we came to the following conclusion. If the Commonwealth were distributed as base income, it could lead to the revitalization of the commons. Basic income make commoners see the commons as a more equitable space for solidarity and allowing them to build relationship on that basis. Number three, the revitalization of the commons through the second coming to becoming an opportunity for the expansion of the commons. Finally, contributing to the formation and activation of more commons. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Yusang An. While we're waiting for maybe some questions from the audience, I would like to ask you a question. Could you give us an example of resources in the Korean context that could be part of the common pool, as you call it, where this model could work on a national level? You can unmute yourself, maybe.
I turn on the microphone. So, basic income Korean network, including me, see the basic income as Commonwealth dividend. Uh, it, we apply this principle to the land holding tax and land dividend. But in surface, many people don't think the land holding tax as the contribution of Commonwealth, but I think the land holding tax and land dividend will uh, exp- uh, stimulated the consciousness of commoners, which all nations have shared the Commonwealth. But to date, we have not a scheme based on the common pool resources or the uh, commons base income. Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's one step at a time. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so much. Okay, there are no questions from the audience. Then I would like to move on to Mr. Alexander de Roo, my friend and chair of BIEN, the Netherlands. And he's going to talk about how to introduce a basic income in a multi-party society like the Netherlands. Alexander, the floor is yours.
Hey everybody. Yes, you can see me. Holland has, of course, 150 years of social institutions. We have a very extensive social welfare state. And that makes it also difficult to change it because people have some benefits in the present system. But let me first introduce myself. I'm now 6 years chair of Basic Income Netherlands. And before that, I was the treasurer of PIEN Executive Committee between 1986 and 2004. And I was also founding father of the Green Party in the Netherlands, and I was representing the Green Party in Brussels. So PIEN Netherlands is a small organization. We have only 600 members, and our newsletter goes to 2,000 people. But we managed to get working groups inside some of the main political parties the last years, and we work good together, and that is our secret. 10 years ago, basic income was not in the party manifestos. In 2012, we had national elections, and none of the parties which were represented in the parliament took up the idea of basic income. And the last 10 years, things have changed. That started with the signature campaign for the European signatures in 2013. It started with Rutger Bregman, who you might heard of, who was an author in the Netherlands, which made a very important book, Basic Income, and 5 other ideas about utopia. And that was very influential, that book. Okay, well, the pressure was also to change the system for the long time unemployed. So about 70 cities and local communities wanted to experiment with basic income. But the government didn't like it, and in the end we had an experiment with only 6 cities, and it was not a full-fledged experiment with basic income. But it still raised the issue of more unconditional welfare, of a more universal welfare state. Things have changed now in 2022. Now the Greens, the Green Party, the Animal Rights Party, Volt, a new party, are in favor of introducing a basic income. And we have 2 parties who are in government, the left-wing Liberals, E66, and the left-wing Christian Democrats, ChristenUnie. They are both in favor of a negative income tax. So that is important to realize that also government parties are now advocating some form of basic income. However, what they have presented, left-wing liberals, is 300 euros for every adult in Europe. And 300 euros is not a lot of money if you know that long-term unemployed get 1,100 and with the supplements even 1,400 euros each month. So 300 euros is not enough. That's one of the reasons why we launched the campaign for Basic Income 2.0. And that was the idea that every adult gets 600 euros, every household gets 600 euros. The child benefit, which we have in Holland, will be raised from 100 to 300 euros, and the supplements for rent still go on to exist. And this idea was calculated by our central government institutions, and they said, okay, you need to raise the taxes, but it's possible to do, and it will reduce the poverty enormously with 60 to 70%. So that was a big success because now also civil servants and major political parties start to study the idea more seriously. So now you move fast forward to 2022. One of the biggest success we can announce is that the biggest trade union in our country, after 5 years of internal discussion, finally came out in favor of basic income. They say now their ground position is in favor, but they still have some questions how to make a good calculations. And we, as as a basic income organization, are asked to cooperate with them to to finalize good calculated basic income. And we are also campaigning as part of the union that the trade union organization will have a full-fledged campaign towards the national elections. They had a full for basic income. They had a full-fledged campaign for introducing a higher minimum wage. They said the minimum wage has to be raised seriously from 10 to 14 euros. And they had success because it was in all the political programs, even in the program of Mark Rutte, the right-wing liberals. And indeed, by January next year, I have to say, the minimum wage will be raised by 10%. So we're trying to convince the big union with 1 million members that they should campaign for the national elections, probably in 2026, together with us, with all the political parties, that they have to introduce a basic income. Of course, there are obstacles. One of the obstacles is that the Social Democrats are still hesitating about whether to say yes to basic income. But they're in a tandem. They're basically in a permanent coalition with the Greens who are in favor, and they have said basic income should not be a stumbling stone. They will accept basic income in the end. But the biggest obstacle is Mark Rutte, is the right-wing liberals. They are against, and Mark Rutte is already 12 years in power. However, his electorate, the people who vote for Mark Rutte, 40% is against basic income, but 25% of his own electorate is in favor, and 25% are still hesitating. But Mark Rutte has now been in power already 12 years, and in 4 years' time, when we will have the next elections in 2026, it's unlikely that he's still there because he has been then in power for 16 years. And he increasingly speaks English when he talks Dutch. Probably he is going for some big international job afterwards. And also the electorate is really bored of him and they need to have a new face. So that gives us new chances for the next government election and the formation of a next government. We had the government now already of 4 parties, and it's likely that it might be even more next time. In the 2017 election, the Greens were participating in the government formation, and they came as far as to say, we want experiment with basic income. And the compromise formula was to say that all local communes are allowed to have basic income. But then the Greens decided not to join the government, and the other parties didn't feel committed, so they went out of the government program. The last elections, 2021, like I said, the left-wing liberals and the left-wing Christian Democrats, they wanted a basic income or a negative income tax of 300 euros. But Mark Rutte blocked it, and now we're only left as a study. But at least it was propagated. It was 2 parties in favor and 2 against, and the idea is now still sticking around. So, sorry, we hope that the next election basic income will be an issue with the help of the trade union and with the help of 3 or 4 national parties. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Alexander. I'm always very impressed about your optimism when you're walking around in this political arena. Um, Can you tell me, what is it in politicians that makes them so afraid of basic income? What is the key element?
The key element for the Social Democrats is, oh, it's expensive, we cannot afford it, we have to make very small steps, etc. But the Social Democrats, they are basically lost their own face in their own being able to be an independent party. So they're teaming up with the Greens and they do everything together with the Greens now. So they are basically under control. The problem for the right-wing liberals and the people in the right is, oh, people will stop working. That is their biggest fear. That is also the fear of the left-wing liberals. So that's why they say we do not call it the basic income, we call it the negative income tax. So they give the idea of a basic income a different term to make it more acceptable. But I think we should simply stick to the idea and make clear what it is. And we also have opinion polls done asking the general public and the public and of different parties what do they think about the basic income. And a small majority is saying, yes, we agree. Basic income is a good idea. So we should capitalize on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There are no questions from the audience, so and the third presentation was cancelled. So I would like to thank you all for being here and sharing your ideas. And this will be the end of the session. And I would like to say to all of you, enjoy the last day of the Bien conference tomorrow. And there are a few more lectures today. So thank you very much. Goodbye.